What is Analytics 4.0? I think we should take 2 minutes just to understand that, because analytics has gone through a lot of eras, as they are called, and actually about 4 or 5 years ago, I think in HBR magazine, there was a Thomas Davenport who had kind of categorized the evolution of analytics, and I'll quickly take 2 minutes to introduce that before I start asking the questions from the panel. The first era he defined as analytics era of business intelligence, which was basically in mid-50s, and it continued for almost 50 years, 5 decades up to 2000s, where it was just basically the collection, the processing, and the dissemination of the data in a little intelligent form. So that was the first era. Then came the Analytics 2.0, which was the era of big data. The Googles of the world and the big data came up, where it was just the size of the data that we had around us and available to organizations was humongous. It was of a different scale altogether. And that is the time that the big data started coming into the limelight. Then came the Analytics 3.0, which is basically, I think we are still, most of us are in, though we are looking forward to 4.0, but I think most of us are still in 3.0, where it was an era of data-enriched offerings, where the services, the products, and the decisions that we were making were basically coming out of the analytics that we were getting from the data that we were collecting from our customers, from the environment. Analytics 4.0 is, I think, more future-looking. It is an era of basically AI and automation. Since morning, I think most of the sessions have been talking about that. Everywhere it is AI and automation now. Everywhere it is about the artificial intelligence and how analytics is going to play a big part there. It is basically information slowly being controlled by the consumers directly. So that is the era that we are getting into. So that is what Analytics 4.0 is, and I think before the panel, I was discussing before lunch also that some of us are not even actually in Analytics in 1.0. There are umpteen number of organizations, small and medium size, which are still manual, or which are still collecting data just for the sake of historical reasons. So I think there is a huge evolution that has happened, and we are talking about 4.0. But I think there are a lot of organizations that we can't forget, which have to be speeded up to bring to 1.0, then 2.0, and then 3 and 4. I'll start with some questions, and Nitin, I will maybe start with you. The successful adoption of new technologies is obviously a very complex process, and there are a lot of challenges when we do that, especially from a finance perspective, if you do, because you have to take along the whole organization with you. You have made a lot of investments, I was told, in the last few years on this. And I wanted to ask you, what are the basic learnings or fundamental learnings before we take any such initiative?
Okay, so let me try to answer it in 2 different phases. So yeah, in last 2 years, just to give you an analogy, I'm from the mall business, and we normally get around close to 4 crore footfalls in a year. The kind of public data we have is enormous. So 2 years back, we really thought that whether we can kind of decipher what kind of behavior the public which is coming in our mall will have. And that's where we started investing in analytics. So first we started, which are the hotspots in the entire mall. Then we went into understanding how the consumer behavior is, which shop he's going and which are the complementary brands. So there's a Zara in one place, and there is a flying machine, and then there's a food court. So we normally track the customer journey. So we normally used to start, there's a family which is coming in, directly going to the food court, having food, and then going to see a movie. They're coming down, buying, impulse buying, maybe a fashion, and then coming out. But after a point of time, it was very difficult for us to, what we do with this data. There's a huge data which is there with us. We have 5-year agreements with all the tenants. We can't just change the tenants. So that was a big learning for us. We are investing. Sometimes we get the data. We know what we can draw from it, but ultimately whether we can use it in a manner which is like commercially beneficial for us. So that was the first phase, a learning for us. You get a volume of data. What is the information you are getting out of it? And how to decipher it and how to use it commercially beneficial for the organization. The second phase came, so as he rightly, Alok, pointed out, there are various analytic stages. In some of the departments, we were still at 1.0. We were looking at the BI. And in some of the departments, we were looking at the customer analytics, consumer behavior, and predictive analysis. You know, if the consumer has bought 15 items in the mall, when he comes next, what is going to buy? So a shop like Go Colors, if you're not getting a customer for 6 months, we were sending messages, you know, we're giving you a discount, why don't you come back? So those are more about predictive analysis and getting consumer on our side. There was a big gap between where the finance department was versus, you know, where the leasing and other departments were. So the big gap, you know, kind of filling that gap was a big issue for us. We're still struggling to find out, you know, how we can make sure that the consumption which happens in the mall gets captured with us in our system immediately. Because these are all, we have 600 retailers in our 5 malls, which are connected in a different POS systems. So from that perspective, they are not on our system. So how to get those you know, information at one place where you have different softwares with different companies. So that's a big challenge. You know, the finance department getting the data versus individual retailers having that, you know, predictive analysis. So we are trying to bridge that gap, but again, that was big learning from us.
Wonderful point. I think you brought up a very important thing about the predictive analysis. Generally, analytics is still seen a lot as descriptive analysis, which is more still historical. Though we say analytics is all future looking, but I think there's a lot of it most of us do, which is still descriptive and historical. So I think predictive analysis and change of behavior, you know, based on the behavioral changes that you are making more prescriptive and predictive. And I think that was exactly my question now to Manas, that I mean, how do you differentiate between this and take a conscious decision of using analytics more for predictive and prescriptive analysis rather than descriptive analysis?
Once again, good afternoon, everybody. Can I take 1 minute to
Sure.
go a little back into this? You see, we generally very loosely use a word called predictive or any kind of analytics. I think in today's world, this is probably most used jargon that I have been listening for last couple of years. And traditionally, Analytic 3.0 is a 15 years old story. So anybody who has worked internationally will know that these were all there in the world before it came as a buzzword in this country. But interesting point that whether it is from a finance function or from the organization's requirement, the major challenge in last couple of years, or maybe a decade or so, came from too much of data that either as a transaction level or at a CRM level or at an operating level, all companies started getting. And that's the biggest trouble. Whether that data as an analytics we use for a purpose of understanding the past, or we get from there a propensity analysis, that what Nitin was saying, what in future my consumer or my machine or my transaction will get into. But world has moved even beyond that. In today's world, people are talking about from analytics to now to the prescriptive. So there are softwares, there are artificial intelligence which can actually prescribe us what we should be doing in a particular situation. Like in all probability, if you look at a pilot who is flying an aircraft, it's a prescriptive mode of analytics that is working. Audi A8 is a prescriptive mode of operating a car, right? And majority of them are working onto it. But rather than getting into the jargons once again, I would sincerely suggest 2 things. Point number 1, let us get first thing first. For any kind of analytics, whatever stage, you have very rightly said that whether we are at 1, 2, 3 or 4, 3 things is must. Wherever we are doing a data-based analysis, I think that job is not going to be there in future. Point number 2, if something where we have to interpret or we have to get into a rule-based work, whatever way you define, may not be there in future. Those are the challenges will come. Point number 3, wherever we are supposed to do something which we in ourselves call is analysis for a future prediction, like data scientist, right? So today it's a very big jargon. but maybe 10 years down the line, that will be defined in a different manner. And 4, another way of looking at the data analytics today is getting into a visualization. Majority of us in this forum, if we take a poll, I think majority of the people will say that dashboard is an analytics. Trust me, dashboard is nothing. How many times while you are driving your car, you look at a dashboard? I don't think any one of us look at the dashboard and drive the car. So dashboarding and visualization with a digital analytics are a complete different story. So as the this session progresses, we might touch upon. But my feel is that beyond the jargon, we must look at the basic source of data, authenticity of the data, and how that data we can use, whether it is an artificial intelligence or any kind of intelligence like bribing I have done with you. So whatever way you call it. So that my take from analytics to predictive to prescriptive.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you are trying to break it down into more understandable and practical concepts. And I think you are right that as a CFO, we have to first understand what data is useful. And not only data, what technology we should be using. This is not going to be only a technology or a data game. And I think that's where, Deepak, I wanted to ask you that CFOs are not necessarily very technology savvy. And taking his point again that we have a lot of data which we know business has and the environment has, and we have the technology which we know is available. How do we, as CFOs, use the right mix of the right technology and the right amount of data, right kind of data, and use it as the right analytics for our business?
Good afternoon. I think the question you asked is very, very relevant, and first of all, let me tell, analytics per se is a buzzword definitely, but as CFOs, we will have to accept this word, and we have to change our mindset also in terms of investment of technologies for these things, because otherwise you will not exist in future. I also feel being a finance function, our existence depends that we accept these things and also enhance our role a little bit of technological knowledge. So we have to move beyond the routine things and learn more about technology. For the purpose of decision making, as you rightly asked the questions, the core thing which we always see in the organization, our role is to see what is the value addition. So whenever we talk of any technologies, definitely we see the costs. But at the same time, whenever a new thing is happening, you have to see what will be the output, create a reporting mechanism that how this will impact my target, how I am going to convert this in my numbers. Ultimately, it boils down to that. I can give an example. For example, when you come with a proposal that you want to choose some technology for a software connectivity, as CFO, we can't just pass or approve these things or these investment that this is something a need of the future. If you go in detail and ask questions and understand things, the reason can be that with these technology in the software connectivity, you may either reduce the quality of the product, quality issues, you can increase the efficiency of these things. So whenever you choose the technology, you have to see definitely cost, but at the same time, what will going to the output of that. And then our core strength, which is there of the value addition, that will come in the picture. So I think that is my take.
So to some extent, what you're saying is that everybody is obviously focusing and interested on their own KPIs. So everybody is trying to understand in the organization, how does it benefit me? So that's another point. That brings a very important point that the whole analytics needs a mindset change within the organization. And I think it should start with the finance organization. And to start with finance organization means to start with CFOs, with all of us.
I just want to add one more point. One of the things which must also show that we have to take our team together in the next era. The skill development, the people we are working for, we can't change overnight. We have mostly people like MCOM, BCom. So we have to, at this stage itself, develop the skill to them. Analytics is nothing but that helps you to make a right decision making. So our role move from just informing data to give an output out of the data and saying that this should be the right decision. So I think our team skill development is also key.
Correct. So exactly this is what I was mentioning, that the digital mindset, which is again another jargon, the digital mindset is required across the finance organization, starting from the CFO, And I think it is required across the organization. Otherwise, any initiative of analytics 3.0 or 4.0 will fail. And I think, Vivek, maybe I should ask you about this, that do you think, I mean, I think in your organization, there is this transformational mindset which is there. And you can, I think, definitely kind of talk about this particular issue of the mindset change that is required within the finance organization and outside the finance organization.
So I think this is very relevant topic because I think CFOs today cannot run without data, and isolation data has no role without analytics. Now, if you see the analytics 1, 2, 3, 4, what has happened? It happened with the evolution of the industry. If you see today, whether from smart factories, 3D printing, or self-driven car, these new technologies are propelling manufacturing industry to touch a new heights, whether in terms of accuracy, reliability, and this is just a beginning. If you see, with the help of cloud, robotics, analytics, there is just enormous value has been created and which can help in decision making, real-time decision making at a much lower cost, at a controlled environment, lower risk, and with a high productivity. We have all started feeling that robotics has already started eliminating monotonous job, creating enormous value and very excellent functional shared services which help in data analytics and giving you so much business insight that at least you can make decisions. Now this journey of dot 3 to dot 4, it is really a transformational because it is aspirational. If you ask me today it is need, probably not, but we are looking 2025, not 20. Today, this analysis helps us in decision making, task performance. But this dot 4.0 will ensure that automation of entire task performance and the decision making. If you see the gap, helping and automating the entire task is a huge difference. Today, we don't talk about call center, we talk about chatbots. So how the same thing, how the data analytics is completely changing the paradigm shift in the entire things. Today, CFOs are the catalyst. They have to be a mastermind for the 4.0. And for that, I think two things is very important. One is a digital disruption. And the digital disruption is not only from the function, from the entire business process has to run. And second thing is very critical of the relevance of reporting, that to whom and what we are reporting. Because it is not the era that we send a monthly pack, we are supposed to send a MIS pack, working board report. It's not. If a sales guy is going to meet a distributor in Andheri, he need to know what is the outstanding of that Andheri guy. What is his sales personnel that at their area is performing? He does not need beyond that at this point of time. But today our standard analysis with the data which we are getting, we are not helping many way people actually are burdened with our routine curriculum. So if we see that and the 4.0, the way if we look for the transformation, actually it changed the perspective and the paradigm shift on our thinking. If you see, if today we accountant roles say the inventories are asset, but honestly speaking, this 4.0 will start telling us inventories are liability for us. That is the power of that will give. Today we see warehouse as a storage point, but actually the analytics will tell us that this is transit point. So there are a lot of mindset change will happen the moment we start embracing these things in our organization. And obviously that part of the role of CFOs will not be limited to only functional chief finance officer. Probably there will be a chief performance officer, there will be a chief value officer. So that is a big thing because we have a 360-degree view of the organization. I think we are a fortunate function. We know we may not have expertise in every area, but we can add a tremendous value to each and every function of the organization with the help of these technologies and tools.
Thank you, Vivek. I think this is something which I had touched in the morning in my keynote as well, that we are no longer CFOs. Yeah. We are the chief performance officers, as you rightly put it. So I think we have to have an understanding of the whole business, 360 degrees. And that's the only way we can bring the analytics also successfully in the organization. Another good point that you made was about the disruptive technology it is. I think there were very few technologies in the last 100 years that have come. Internet was definitely one of them, which was completely disruptive, which was transformational. And I think the next one is going to be blockchain. Now, blockchain is not a part of our discussion today, and it's a little too early still, we don't understand a lot of it. But I think analytics 4.0 or whatever you want to call it as a jargon, but that is going to be another one. And I think it is more about automation of IT tasks and IT decisions as well. IT has actually lagged behind in the last few analytics versions. And now is the time that even IT is getting completely automated. And that is where Analytics 4.0 is going to play a very large role. Now, I think coming to you, Dinesh, you have an editing platform, I think, which has done some 20,000 successful implementations. And I think you will be able to give us some broad contours of such a model, how it can be useful for analytics.
Yeah. Thanks, Alok. Good afternoon, everybody. I work for a company, recently joined Cactus, and we are into an editing business. Now, as part of the business, we touch upon clients across 190 countries where we get their paperwork and we edit that. Now, in a typical scenario, when you're working with B2B client, then your relationship is pretty much face-to-face. You are meeting them, and your information is fluid, where you can get the updates about them. But in an organization where it's a retail business like Nitin has, or organization like us who deals with clients from 190 countries, it's very critical for us to understand the pulse of the client, like what he's looking for, and does the business model what we are running is providing the needed information through which we can channelize our work to meet their requirements. And that's where we try to manage our platform, where we ensure that he is getting what he's looking for. So in terms of how the platform works, how many clicks he does, whether the form is in terms of accessibility is good or not. Whatever the feedback he keeps is giving us, we are trying to manage that whole aspect. For us, that becomes a information feedback, and again, we can't really wait. If you are getting 20,000 papers every month, we really can't wait for months to get the information. So for us, it becomes like on hourly basis, we are getting the updates, how the traffic on the website is happening. And is there anything which is going wrong where the clients are not able to access the system? In that case, the analytics has to be like live. The database need to run on like minute by minute basis. And if there's any problem, it needs to be solved like on the dot. So very good example would be like Uber or Ola, where we call the car needs to come in like 5 minutes. So unless the organization, and especially the retail organizations, the information flow is not seamless on a minute-to-minute basis, it will be very difficult to sustain. And as part of organized CFO community, I think that's where we are trying to build systems which are giving various data points of customer behavior, various data points where customers getting serviced and how they are getting serviced, are they happy or not, and if there are corrective actions needs to be taken. Now it's not like finance functions will need to take the corrective action, but it may be the technology team, it may be the editing team, it may be some other teams. So the whole organization is trying to work around those data points, and everybody has access to those data points. Luckily, we have done a good amount of work internally on that. All our information points are online. Tableau reports are like live. You can go and access and see how the data flow is happening. So that way we have done a good work, and we try to further improvise on that, where how do we give a better service to customer, and how do we ensure that if I am catering to 190 plus countries, then they get the seamless services.
Thank you, Dinesh. Dinesh, just the way you have a platform, I think Ashutosh also has a platform. We are talking about platforms now, and Ashutosh is the only panel member here who is a non-CFO. So I think from a perspective of a technology person, let's hear what such platforms can do for us and how should we understand these better.
Thank you, Alok. So good afternoon. I come from Paymate, and as a platform, we work very closely with the finance community and the finance managers and CFOs across organizations. And understanding the key pain point of a business in terms of collections, payments, data, information, predictive information. So platform has the power of giving you the intelligence and the data when it is required. So a simple use case is where I have an outstanding collection from a customer, and my platform can give you the intelligence that the historic background of this customer is that he will default on payment. Now, whether you want to go ahead and take a decision of blacklisting him or take corrective action to ensure that payments are on time, the platform has that power of giving you that information through the artificial intelligence which it brings on. On the other side, when it comes to working capital management, machine learning can give you upfront information in terms of how you want to probably you want to use that information for applying for finance, or you want to go ahead and hedge in the foreign exchange market. So your treasury side of it can be automated using the machine learning side of the platform also. So based on the discussions that we've had, it's a mind shift which is required. It's technology which will bring in the change. But apart from that, there's a lot of people processes also which need to be aligned along with these, because what we see upfront is whenever we talk to organizations who have been using the old methods, and we project a platform which can come up on board on a cloud and automate their entire systems. So the internal teams initially have a friction on taking it up. But gradually when they start seeing the potential of the platform, then the business also for them as well as for us grows together. So that's the challenge, that's the advantage a platform brings on for a finance team today.
Sure, thank you, Ashutosh. So before I open this to questions from the audience, I will have just one or two quick questions, and I'll leave it to the complete panel, whoever wants to answer that. So I think one of them is that, like we were seeing in the video from AWS, that how the robos are going around and taking the jobs that humans used to do, and there is a lot of scare that we keep hearing about humans being replaced by robots completely. Now, analytics 4.0 or 5.0, whatever it may be, there is going to be a huge amount of human and machine interaction. Any one of you has any view on how do we humans manage this interaction and we don't become redundant?
I'll just try to answer that. If you see when early 90s, when people used to do their own thing, there was no machine. When Industry 1.0 came, he said everything will go on a toss. But still, there were a lot of unemployment. 2.0 came, lot of automations. So today also, I think this is a fair, but I think there will be a lot of new avenues of employment will come up, new avenues of looking the same things will come up. Probably automations will take in, but yes, there is a fear. There are a lot of reports come, billions of jobs will go away, self-driving cars are coming, what will happen to the truck drivers? But if you see the simple example of e-com, where the e-com has impacted some of the retail market, but if you see the amount of improvement in the logistic services, every small and town and villages has got so sharp infrastructure in terms of a distribution network. So yes, there are as of now fear in mind that jobs will go, but at least if you see the history of era, from almost 100 years, where every 3 revolution has already happened, there is still unemployment in everywhere globally. Well, there is a fear in mind, but I think there will be new ways will come up, new opportunities will come up. Otherwise, civilization will be under a risk. So, but there are scientific reports. I'm not ignoring that. I am itself saying to my team, how can we cut off job by 50% every day? That is why I'm talking. Because we are thinking that technology will replace, but honestly, believe me, I am not able to reduce headcounts. Because people say we are reducing headcount, they just do surrogacy to outsource. But yes, technology has a potential, but are we ready for that? Today we are under binding by so many SOPs, so many process, policies. Still after having the digital copy, you need to have a hard copy of claim. There are many organizations moved that away with all these formalities. But if you see our income tax regulation, our indirect tax regulations, really does not allow us to enjoy the full benefit of the digitization which you can get. But to come to the point, I think while the discussion is happening that a lot of, make entire thing dehumanized, but I think there will be new ways will be created, new opportunities will be created. Otherwise, I don't know where we'll land up.
Sure. Nitin, you want to
add? So I just want to add, so my take on the subject is that from the roots, it needs to be corrected. And when I say from the roots, the education system has to come up with the new set of ways of working, ways of teaching. Also our institutes, like all the professional institutes, we maximum of us are chartered accountants, cost accountants. I think the institute has to bring those changes into the system, where anybody who is coming out of the institute has those ammunition in the back to combat that. Today, a child is still going to the school and reading the same geography and history. I think slowly we need to introduce subjects like quantum physics, more into mobilities and mobile technologies at a very nascent or an early stage. I don't think we, after class 12th, if somebody is going to start into programming, I don't think then what you're saying probably might be true. We will be having a workforce in millions who probably don't know what is Internet of Things or machine learning or blockchain.
Yeah, so you're right. I think this is again breaks to something that I said in the morning, that demographic dividend becoming a demographic disaster if we don't do the education right. And reskilling is going to be very important. I think the current government has also tried bringing up the skilling factor. And again, this is one country in India where I've seen that people can become plumbers and electricians without any qualifications. In the West, it doesn't happen like that. Even to become a plumber or a gardener, you need some basic qualifications. So I think, yes, right, Vivek, obviously there will be a huge need in a different form maybe. And I think the key is that we see that, and accordingly we skill our next generation, I think. Sure, Manas. Yeah.
I represent life science and healthcare industry, where I think the maximum amount of, apart from normal technology, maximum amount of artificial technology is getting in. You talked about an employment disaster in case this is happening. Let me tell you one thing. Today, our cardiac surgeon who does a surgery in 6 hours will be able to do it in 2 to 3 hours in few years from now. It's already available. I can also tell you that a cardiac surgery who is done for 5 hours with a 4-inch suture will be done in less than 2-inch suture in near future. Is it not better?
Of course.
Right? So there will be different technology partners will come in that. I know even in pharma manufacturing, the quality process is majorly automated globally, which are a typical risk for majority of the business from India, from pharma. Is it not better? Correct? So I really don't think as a professional, I told you that in case our job is to interpret data or follow rules, our job will not be there tomorrow. If it is not rule-based will be governed by machine, even today, even tomorrow. But otherwise, innovation will give literally the scopes. I know people from tier 2 cities, the household ladies, so-called homemakers, are doing business which are reasonably moderate through Facebook, which was not predominant 10 years back. So is it not empowerment? Is it not better? Let us not get scared that IoTs or Internet of Things of the world or artificial intelligence will take away human being. I am a fundamental believer it will not. In any of the process, whether in the industry, services, or anything else, logistic or anything else. Like somebody talked about paper, what is that? I think legal documentation or something. We work with majority of the international lawyers because of our business being all the 6 continents. I know that 90% of the cases, the legal documents are validated by machine. Even as I'm sitting here, I could see a mail which is validated by a machine. So it is already happening. Does it mean the legal counsels are going to be extinct? Believe me, no. I also share with you that we completely done away with a manual intervention for consolidation for 21 countries with 35 global subsidiaries in 24 hours from 31st of the previous month. So, but still the people are working because they are working for the better things. So my feel, sorry I have taken a little longer time, but my feel, not as a utterly optimistic, my feel there will be a lot of opportunities.
Wonderful. You have, I think, summarized it very well, saying that the efficiency factor is obviously changing many-fold now. And that's where the machine and human interaction is going to come, and that's what I was trying to ask, that how do we ensure that happens? And you have obviously painted an optimist picture. So thank you for that.